Welcome to Punks for Progress. I am Reverend Aaron. That there is Ted Kelly, which means this here is the Philly Report.
Hey!
Hey, how are you, Ted?
Not too bad. How are you, Reverend?
I am well as can be expected, I suppose.
Yeah.
We were talking just briefly off air about the fact that there has been now 30 people, right-wing people, weaponized by billionaire-funded terrorist fascist propaganda. 30 of them that have been arrested since El Paso and Dayton for threatening or going out with arms. I mean, a whole bunch of visits to Walmarts and threats to Walmarts and schools. Lots of threats to shoot up schools, and these are credible threats to shoot up synagogues. 30 of them since El Paso and Dayton, and it's just, we at Punks for Progress, and myself included, have been saying for a number of years, one of the reasons we started this project is because we're foreseeing that there's going to be a serious ramping up of mass violence and slaughter and shooting and homegrown right-wing terrorism. A lot of people are going to get killed, and we were just like, hello? And then they start coming out in the street, so we're like, hello, here they are. These are the people who are losing their unhidden shit, and they're gonna probably start killing a bunch of people. And then the bourgeois fucking media went, yeah, those Antifa terrorists with their violent tactics of milkshakes, I know we're reporting constantly on mass shootings all the time from the right, but I mean, they went to the dollar store, Ted, and they bought a bandana and put it on their face. And so it is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. But those mass shootings, that's those mental health issues, bro. That's all that is.
Well, I mean, ultimately, these kids are just playing too many video games.
Definitely. I was telling one of my comrades the other day that when I'm old, I'm not a boomer, but close. I had to give up Pong because I would play it. And instantly, I mean, I'm talking third grade, and I just instantly would get these flashes of images of my head of just slaughtering all kinds of people.
Oh, yeah.
So
Angry Birds has led to a very angry population.
I can't even fathom how we live in a society where there's Angry Birds.
It's something that it's so clear now that the wheels are falling off of this system, and even in the high, in the Fed and these financial institutions, they're doing everything they can. They're pulling out all the stops. They're lowering interest rates. They're, trying to get everybody, including China, not to devalue their currency. They know that another crash is coming.
Yes, they do.
And I think the ruling class is also panicking about the next crisis. Mm-hmm. And in their fear, they have run out of all the neoliberal austerity measures. We'll cut taxes for the rich. We'll inject capital into the economy. We're not making money off of production or industry. We can only squeeze profit out of the financial sector now. They're completely panicked, and the only way they can see that they can maintain their hegemony now is by turning to these genuinely fascist forces.
And that's absolutely right. I mean, and I often say that I describe fascism as the strong arm defense mechanism of capitalism in crisis. So if you see the manifestation of authoritarian, scapegoating, demagoguing types like Bolsonaro and Duterte and Viktor Orban and the asshole that with the funny hair that just took over London, took over England and all these all these clown fascists. If you see that, then you know that the capitalist ruling classes that chose these people are scared. They're scared. Their economy, this entire economic structure is collapsing in on itself. It is not a viable economic system. Whether you revolt against it or not, it's going to ultimately collapse. But if you allow it to just go through that process, you're inviting in violent, brutal oppression of you and the masses all around you as they try to maintain it, because it's the only way it can be maintained. Right?
Exactly.
And thank you for indulging my utter It never ceases to amaze me, the onslaught, the constant barrage of horror, which is on purpose, right? But
of course.
So thank you for indulging me in my venting on that issue. But we do have a jam-packed Philly report. We're going to get into what you and your comrades have going on in relation to Kashmir, which is, wow, if that is not a hotbed of potential on every single level. Two of the most nuclear-stocked countries in the world with a long history of tension and of sort of flip-flopping of political dynamics within both of them, and very fascinating and very, very crucially important to what's going on all over with the capitalist ruling class. So we're going to talk about that. We are going to talk about Maurice Hill.
Yeah.
Many people may have seen the standoff that went down with a drug dealer and a bunch of cops who took one. And so, being from Philly, our comrade Ted has some very cool details and developments on that. So we are also going to talk about the pigs in your town. Well, they murdered someone named Bryant B.J. Henry.
That's right. Yeah.
So you're going to get us up to speed on that.
Yeah.
And then Richard Ross, he's your police chief?
Former police chief.
Interesting that the word is he resigned in, what's that word? Disgrace? Is that the word that they were using?
That's right. That's a very good choice of words.
So we're going to talk about that, and you have some amazing developments going on with the Worker Solidarity Network that you want to share with us.
Hell yeah.
So we have a jam-packed as fuck Philly report this time around. We'll be right back.
What we were after now was the old surprise visit. That was a real kick, and good for laughs and lashings of the old ultra-violent.
Like a kid, one whose time has arrived. That magazine is is Video Gaming Illustrated, the handbook for video gaming recreation. Inside you'll find reviews. If you're playing games, the name of the game is Video Gaming Illustrated. Subscribe to Video Gaming Illustrated for just $19.99.
Hey, we're back. I'm Reverend Aaron. There's Ted Kelly from Philly. This is the Philly Report with Ted Kelly. And Kashmir. We are going to talk about you. Not only do you and your comrades, are you in the process of doing actual direct action in relation to Kashmir, which I want to hear all about, but can you get us sort of up to speed on what the fuck is going on in Kashmir at this point?
Because Kashmir, it's an interesting situation because, obviously in India right now, we have countries all around the world, from Poland to Hungary to Brazil to the Philippines. There are these super far-right leaders coming to power. And India is one of them. Narendra Modi is a hard-right Hindu nationalist who really is doing things in India that resemble these fascist policies that we see elsewhere, particularly with this incredibly Islamophobic anti-Muslim policy. But it can be very confusing to folks what's going on in Kashmir because, the chief antagonist for India in the region is Pakistan, which again is not exactly a progressive government, and it has ties to the United States. But, in 47, when British colonial rule sort of ended, and there was this partition, you had Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. It was originally West Pakistan. Bangladesh became its own country. But, all of which are, sort of post-colonial, neo-colonial states. And that rivalry between the two countries can be very misleading when it comes to the question of Kashmir. And it is, both countries have a claim, a territorial claim, and so it's been this sort of battleground for decades now. There are 14 million people in Kashmir. It's like more people in Kashmir than there are in Pennsylvania. And it's a majority Muslim province. It's the only Muslim majority province in India. So given all these anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim policies, Modi has finally done what many of his predecessors have threatened and has essentially invaded and now is occupying with the Indian military Kashmir, the territory of Kashmir. There are like over 500,000 Indian troops there. When you think 600,000, over 500,000, so 600,000 troops in an area with 14 million people, that's a huge, and they shut down the internet, they shut down phone lines, like all modes of communication. It's actually very hard to get information out of Kashmir. Like the last images I saw were troops marching in the streets, and then things started to get shut down. But the most important thing to keep in mind is that Kashmir is a unique and autonomous region. They have claim for national sovereignty, and they deserve to, realize their own national sovereignty. So it's been something that people in Kashmir have desired since 47 for independence. And now this military occupation has thrown things into a really dangerous situation because, as you mentioned at the top of the show, both Pakistan and India have nuclear weapons. So it's the highest possible stakes for a battle of this. And that's sort of where we're at right now.
And with long histories of both sides doing ruthless ass shit to the other.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, in terms of these bourgeois capitalist governments, there is no good side to take there. It's like the point, if when a clash like this happens between two capitalist countries, is revolutionary defeatism. This is a case for the self-determination of Kashmiris themselves. And that's the possible good thing that can come out of this. But it's a really, really scary situation right now, particularly for the diaspora. There are so many people who are outside of the country, including in Philadelphia, who are now very concerned about their family members back home and not being able to contact them, and really fearing that another war could break out, because India and Pakistan have fought wars over this territory in the past.
So, and I heard something today, it might have been on the Young Turks, but, so take it for what it's worth, but there was some type of talk of Pakistan getting ready. If a certain vote or something goes the way it does in Kashmir, that then the Pakistanis are going to bring in like 500,000 troops, and then at that point you have more than 1 million troops faced off against each other, and it almost ensures at that point.
Right.
And then you have the people of Kashmir who don't want either of them there.
Exactly.
So, you're in the process of trying to educate people or do something about this. So, please, Comrade Ted, fill us in on what you and your comrades are up to in this.
Yeah, so there's a great group in Philadelphia called the Philadelphia South Asian Collective. And the thing that's really cool about this group is that it's people from all over the South Asian subcontinent, and who are celebrating their shared cultural heritage. They don't give a fuck about these inter-imperialist conflicts. They stand in solidarity with each other. They support their own unique cultures and recognize each other as workers. And there was a demonstration this week at Penn's Landing, which is like the river waterfront in Philadelphia, in solidarity with Kashmir. And it was great. I mean, it was multinational, both people from all over South Asia, to African Americans, black folks here, East Asian supporters in solidarity. It was everywhere. It was multinational, it was multi-generational. Dozens of people came out for an issue that is not really being reported on that much in the corporate bourgeois media. So it's very exciting to see that kind of turnout for an event like this. And it was a lively demonstration that actually concluded with a sort of banner drop or banner reveal at this there's some kind of India festival that was sort of celebrating, hey, we're Indians, we're proud of it, we're Hindu nationalists, and it was sort of like upper crust petty bourgeois kind of gathering.
Gotcha.
And so they went there and they dropped a banner, saying like, stop shedding Kashmir's blood, like
nice.
Kashmir independence, and it was bold. I mean, there were a lot of people at this. I mean, they had support from people at this India festival, but there were a lot of people who were really pissed off to see that too, and they tried to cover it up with their Indian flags and stuff like that, but they were taking this struggle directly to the people who are,
Fantastic.
It reminded me a lot, actually, of having so many people from Central America, migrants, people who moved here decades ago or their parents came here, standing in solidarity against U.S. imperialism in Venezuela, and that broad coalition, and then a handful of far-right Venezuelans who really were trying to shut down these demonstrations. There was a similar dynamic there with the few Hindu nationalist Indians in Philadelphia who did not like being reminded of this horrible military occupation that just took place.
So talk to me about, speaking of petty bourgeois, there's a person running for office right now who has a very curious sort of connection to, and a sort of, one might say, apologist connection to this and to Modi, and when this person isn't surfing, apparently they're making apologies for a nationalist, fascist piece of shit.
It's surprising that this is something that in some progressive circles you have to really talk to people about, because for some, Tulsi Gabbard is a favorite. She even has this reputation somehow as an anti-war candidate. despite the fact that, she's basically running for president on a platform of, I'm a troop, I'm super proud of the things I learned as a troop. And it's that kind of like nationalist anti-war stuff where it's like what John Kerry ran on in 2004. Like, I was a soldier and I would only send people to die for good reasons, not for bad reasons. And it's like, that's essentially what Tulsi's thing is. But no, she has referred to Narendra Modi as a friend. She's met with him multiple times. She actually suspended her campaign. Remember when John McCain did that during the 2008 financial collapse? He's like, I have to go do work. She did that to go back into the reserves on active duty, and to do some kind of military exercises with in the Philippines or something like that. So she has not said, I haven't heard any comment condemning this invasion of Kashmir.
Well, and who's asking her about it?
Right, yeah, exactly. She's
nobody.
already the anti-war candidate, so that's the reputation that she's, But I mean, from the things that we've heard her say, I mean, she is certainly a supporter of this virulently Islamophobic Hindu nationalist. Her own war record is going abroad to kill brown Muslims, and there's no way of framing this invasion and occupation of Kashmir as anything other than a Hindu nationalist assault on the only Muslim-majority province in India.
And the only veterans who's, in my personal opinion, who take on an anti-war stance that I lend any credence to or any belief in, is the ones that are talking about the systemic nature of it. It's not just, oh man, there's no point in this, it's not a winnable war or whatever. Like, she is not saying, no. What I realized over there when I took it upon myself to murder these brown people was that I was doing it for a completely different reason than what I had been sold on. This is Western imperialism. This is capitalism run amok. This is a raping of resources. When they start... You either have that sort of type of rhetoric as a veteran, an anti-war veteran, or you don't. And if you don't, you're just not an anti-war veteran. And it's like Brooksy and Jamie on Majority Report today were framing it as sort of like saying that Tulsi is sort of carving out a isolationist wing of the liberals, which is
that's exactly right.
A terrifying notion, because that's just not that's not leftism by any stretch of the imagination.
And it's always a lie too. Donald Trump ran on that exact kind of nationalist isolationist thing, and there are some dorks who actually believed it, who are like, oh wow, yeah, Trump is really the anti-war candidate here. It's like, no, that it's running on racist nationalism to say our beautiful boys are too good to shed.
Right. And the Republican base is tired of the wars abroad. They made that clear under Bush that they were even tired of it with him. It got sort of overshadowed by the financial collapse that him and his buddies caused, but they were hemorrhaging support.
Yes.
At the end of Bush Jr.'s
very
administration.
Unpopular in this country.
What's that? I'm sorry?
Wars typically are very unpopular in this country. It takes a great deal of propaganda to get the working class even ambivalent about a war, And I feel like that's sort of the thing that they do now. It's not they're coming to blow us up, they're going to steal your wives, they're going to invade the U.S. Now it's he's a really bad guy, that Assad or that Maduro, or he's killing his own people. So when it comes time to do the airstrikes, people are confused. Well, isn't he a bit I don't know. I don't have an opinion. I heard that he was really nasty, and that's all they have to do is to get us to sit out and not protest.
But at some point, they get tired of it. The Iraq War, the second Iraq War, was sold on the shock and awe. We're going to come in and just lay waste to the shit, come in, democracy the fuck out of the place, and then we're out. We still have troops there. Okay?
Exactly.
And people are fucking fed up with it. And so for someone to come along and, as a member, calling themselves a progressive or whatever the hell she thinks she's portraying herself as, when you're carving out, as they said, the isolationist wing of the Democratic Party. Just go be a Republican and fuck off.
Yeah. Right. And I'm glad that you mentioned too that there are a lot of people who, for whatever reason, either generations ago they were drafted into the military, or they bought into the propaganda and enlisted in like the recent invasions and wars. Some of my dearest comrades are people who realized the nightmarish nature of the U.S. military and have now dedicated their lives to, trying to fucking dismantle the Pentagon, and that goes from Vietnam to the current struggles. I know people who, Will Griffin, who does the peace report, is somebody else who, is a veteran, and that is what radicalized him. And a lot of these folks hate the establishment precisely because of being tricked and the shit that they were forced to do,
And then,
so I have respect for it.
And then they come home all fucked up with PTSD and, and night terrors and all this shit. And, the VA is, of course it's, it's got all its troubles, but it's still one of the best healthcare networks we sort of have in the country.
Yeah.
But perpetually in Congress, they're fucking these veterans.
Yeah.
Overtly and openly. The same ones that sent them there. The same ones who convinced them you need to go over there and fight this, and you're the heroes, and you're the patriots, and you're God's chosen, whatever the fuck they try to, pump them up with. And then they're like, oh, I'm glad that you're back, and like, that sucks that you don't have legs, but like, we're actually going to have to cut some funding for that prosthetic leg that you needed, and yeah, sorry. Thanks, though. Thanks. And so that person is just, how do you not devote your life to tearing down what did that to you? You have no choice. You either crumble and live in all the trauma that was induced on you, or you fucking scream out against it. You don't carry yourself the way this Tulsi Gabbard person does.
Right. And the class character of the military is very different than it was 40 years ago when there was a draft. But when it's something like a third of the homeless and unhoused population in the United States is people who got completely fucked by the military. All right, well then that's still a huge section of the U.S. military that is working class. But yeah, and it's, as always when we discuss these things, we have to never lose sight of the fact that the primary victims of the U.S. military are the people on the other side of the guns. But there's a great book that John Catalinato wrote called "Turn the Guns Around," which is just a history of people, of anti-war resistance within the military. That's an inspiring lesson that I hope that we can still learn from. Turn the guns around.
So, what would you think? Speaking of Western imperialism and sort of back to India and Pakistan.
Yeah.
What is your sort of assessment, or you and your comrades' assessment of the U.S. The United States role in what's going on there?
Yeah. So India and do you remember? It was not that long ago now, like maybe 10 years ago, that everyone was talking about the BRIC countries, these developing former colonial possessions. It was Brazil, Russia, India, and China, right? And we've seen now in this post-recession, post-2008 recession, capitalism at a dead-end phase where, Brazil has gone fully fascist. Russia has, a hyper-conservative leadership that is interested in maintaining its, national defense, but is not, in any stretch of the imagination, a progressive or socialist country. And now India as well, which is, on the verge of becoming a hyper-nationalist, crypto neo-fascist country as well. the United States and India are closer allies today than maybe ever before. The contradictory nature of this crisis in Kashmir is that traditionally the U.S. and Pakistan have been very, very close. Particularly since 2001 with the invasion and colonization of Afghanistan. Pakistan was one of the main military allies. And
I would just say that it was a really weird relationship with Pakistan through all of that too. And it was a lot of propping up of some very shady characters.
Yeah.
I can't remember in a lot of detail, but I remember getting the impression that the leader in Pakistan was very childish. And didn't understand the brevity of what was actually happening. I mean, we were drone striking the fuck out of women and children in Pakistan, and this was allowed to, go on. But sometimes he was mad about it. It's kind of how I remember
seeing an interview with Pervez Musharraf where he was accused of basically being a U.S. puppet, and I'll never forget because it was so goofy. His direct response was, "That is absolutely 200,000% wrong." I was just like, what a clown. Pervez Musharraf actually lived in the Philadelphia area for a little while after he was ousted from power.
Oh, wow.
Bizarre. But that does show this very weird, relationship that Pakistan and its military elite still has with the U.S. And also, let's not forget the weird fucking Osama bin Laden thing, where it's like everybody fucking knew that bin Laden was there, but then Obama was like, fuck it, we're going to go for it anyway, and very strange situation that maybe we still don't know all the details about, to be honest.
For sure.
But what's relevant now, certainly, is that Pakistan is deeply in debt to the United States because of this parasitic arms relationship. The military aristocracy can only prop itself up through these arms deals with the U.S., and so there's this, it's sort of like an arms-based colonization, which again is a dangerous situation, a very dangerous situation.
Absolutely. So my mind is reeling thinking about, okay, for one, I can see, it's pretty easy to understand why we have this newfound love between the United States and India. It's Trump and Modi.
Yes.
They genuinely like each other, and it's not hard to figure out why. But we're invested in Pakistan.
Yes.
So who's
to make things even more complicated? So I think it's 2/3 of Kashmir is in this valley in what is India claims is Indian territory. 1/3 of it is in Pakistan, and a part of Kashmir is in China, which complicates things even more. So it's certainly that is a huge complicating factor there when we see the U.S. Just traditionally, think about the U.S. role in the Tibetan separatist movement. There's a lot of questions now with U.S. ties to the Hong Kong protests, and certainly I think you can guarantee that the State Department and the Pentagon are looking at this Kashmir situation as something that could potentially give them more leverage over China.
Fascinating. It goes on and on. So do you have any further actions planned in relation to this? You just came off the heels of this last one, but...
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that people check out the Philadelphia South Asian Collective. They're on Instagram at PHL South Asian Collective, doing some really interesting work, and can guarantee that there's going to be some exciting new stuff coming down the pike.
Wonderful. Hey, so let's come back. Let's talk about the Maurice Hill standoff.
Yes.
But first, check out some fucking guillotine truck. back. I'm Reverend Aaron. There's Ted Kelly. This is the Philly Report. What the fuck was all that, bro? I mean, when I saw it, it was just everywhere with this standoff, and
Oh, God.
I instantly was like, all right, Ted, what, dude? Like, it's time for a report, because I don't believe anything I'm hearing on this.
Right. Yes.
At all. None of this sounds right. And so why don't you get us up to speed on first sort of, just for people who don't understand who Maurice Hill is and maybe they missed it, kind of what would the average person's take, on this be? What did the sort of bourgeois media give them, I guess? And then let's hear what you know from a first-hand, more closely related perspective.
Totally. So, I guess, like, as a bit of background, so for folks who aren't, like, totally familiar with Philadelphia, Philadelphia has, like, Center City, which is, like, it's where City Hall is. It's a financial district. There's, like, more touristy and, like, business stuff on the east side towards the river. West Philadelphia is a massive part of the city, majority black, that's getting rapidly gentrified. South Philly is, a very culturally diverse area, but sort of like, it's where a lot of the punks, it's a lot where the hipsters, it's like a white Italian working class, and Southwest Philly has also been very black. And then you have North Philly, which is, again, like, huge cultural output. Coltrane was there for a long time. Like, there's so much great music that came out of this. Meek Mill is from North Philly. But North Philly has two of the poorest zip codes in the country, of like the top 10 poorest zip codes. It is, if you want to see what Malcolm X was talking about when he talked about the internal colonies of the United States, North Philly is there. There's also Temple University campus, which is rapidly gentrifying a large section of that. And with that comes military occupation of the police and white kids in luxury student housing and all kinds of stuff. So it's in this big context that there was a search warrant served that was signed off by the DA for residents in North Philly up by like Broad Street and Erie, sort of where the Erie Avenue. The warrant didn't have a name on it. It was a search warrant that was for a particular residence. It's not clear if it was a no-knock warrant where they just barge right in, right, or whether, that still is not clear. What is clear is that the police went 2 doors down from the residence they had the warrant to search, and allegedly a shootout took place between the police and a 30-something-year-old black man named Maurice Hill, who lives in the area.
The warrant wasn't even initially for Maurice Hill's residence?
Maurice Hill, his name was not on there, nor was the house that he was in at the time was the residence that they were supposed to search. It was 2 doors down, completely different address.
I fucking saw, for 2 days straight, every outlet, everything all over the social media feeds, all this stuff. Never once did I hear that they served their warrant on the wrong fucking door.
Even the Philadelphia Inquirer that first put this out, that fact it's not even a buried lead. It's so far down the article, it's next to fucking like dinosaur bones. And they just mention it in like one paragraph. That's like, Hill was like engaged officers, again, allegedly, this is according to the police, when in a kitchen 2 doors down from the residence that was listed on the warrant. Now, the police are saying they saw some activity that led them to go to the other house.
Oh, yeah. Wait, what? Wait, what? You saw some shit when you fucked up and went to the wrong house? But you saw some shit, and then next thing you know, you're in the kitchen? Did I hear you say the kitchen?
The kitchen, yes. Now, and we then missed some activity where Maurice Hill is then in the top of that, he's on the top floor of the house. There are police in the building, in the house. It's like a row, who were apparently trapped there, and police say that there were 6 officers who were shot by Maurice Hill. Now again, now I'm no forensic pathologist, but the police are claiming that Maurice Hill had an AR-15, high-powered rifle. Every police officer who was allegedly shot was taken to the hospital and released within an hour. Now again, I'm not a medical expert, but if you're shot with a high-powered rifle,
and you managed to hit 6 different people, at least one of them's fucked up, man.
It's remarkable.
Listen,
it just does not make sense.
Jesus loves a God-fearing gunman. So he might have just, performed a little magic bullet, miracle for these. Let's recap this, because this is stunning to me, man. That they issued the warrant. They went to the wrong house. Now, and I was going to say, we don't. You mentioned that we don't know if it was a no-knock warrant or not.
Right.
I would say it's not. Because if it was a no-knock warrant, they'd be like, yo, it was a no-knock warrant.
Right.
They would instantly dispel any questions about why. They wouldn't have had to bury the kitchen in the bottom of the story.
Yeah.
They could have just said right up front, we entered the premise on a no-knock warrant. They would be so upfront about it. There's no no-knock warrant. Why the fuck were they in that kitchen?
Exactly.
After?
There's also,
God damn it.
We have to look at the history of this, too. It was only last year. Like, the Philadelphia police, they do these warrants and search the houses all the time, particularly in North and West. But it was only last year that cops went to a house, they claimed that they knocked and announced their presence. They busted into the house, and there's a man, Ricardo Giddings, who is 59 years old, and his wife. All they know is that they're in their house watching TV, and a bunch of men with guns come in, and apparently he starts shooting to defend himself. They kill him, they shoot his wife, and they say, after an investigation, it was a terrible tragedy. He must have had the TV on and didn't hear us. But basically, the cops broke it, and they weren't, the warrant in that case was for Ricardo Giddings' grandson, who they questioned and then didn't do anything with. So they bust into this guy's house, kill him, shoot her. And that was only last year. No charges, no reprimands, nothing. And now they want us to say, they expect us to believe that they busted into this house and Maurice Hill, decided he was Rambo and was just, wanted to gun down some cops today. It just doesn't make sense.
But, so this guy has something on his record in relation to drugs, right? So that's why they can go drug dealer and then plant the idea in your mind that they were there to issue a warrant for him dealing drugs.
Yes. Which, by the way, the DA, because it's District Attorney Larry Krasner who signs these warrants, our progressive reformer cop prosecutor. The DAO put out a statement listing the charges, and now we know what the warrant was originally for, which was weed. They were suspecting that it was possession with intent to distribute. Weed, by the way, is decriminalized in Philadelphia, unless you have a certain amount and you live in North Philly and we want to come for you. Maurice Hill had, I think, prior gun charges that he did a plea bargain with, and is a free man. And
I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit.
Exactly.
Fuck what this dude did or didn't do in his past. Why the fuck did they see something in his kitchen when they didn't have a goddamn no-knock warrant, when they're at the wrong goddamn door to begin with?
Right.
Fuck these pigs, man. They were just hyped up and they wanted to fucking kill a bad guy today, man.
Yes. Right. And this is the Philadelphia Police Department. All cops are bastards. But this fucking department, when I saw this shit happening on the news, and I'm close enough that I heard the helicopters all day, the first thing I was thinking of is what we've talked about before on the Philly Report, the Move altercation in 1978,
right,
where they served a warrant to the Move house in Powelton Village, which was in West Philly. Hundreds of cops. They fired tens of thousands of rounds of ammunition into this house. One cop got hit in the back of the head or whatever from some other cop, and they claimed that the MOVE, like 9 members of the MOVE organization.
So they bombed them.
Yes.
So they bombed their
85.
fucking house and burnt down an entire city block in the process.
Exactly, and that was
Of
7
homes.
years later.
Of
Right.
homes.
And so the first thing I thought of, they're shooting at this house. There's hundreds of cops there. How do we know that the 6 cops who were shot by Maurice Hill? We don't have. We haven't seen the guns. They claim that he had a pistol, that he had an AR-15. We don't know any of this. The only thing we can go on now is the cops' word. I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
And they don't have. They're wishy-washy, and God, man, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he did not own a pistol or a weapon at all. I wouldn't be surprised if he owned no guns. He may or may not have. I don't know. And again, I don't give a fucking shit.
It's not my business.
He's sitting in his apartment 2 doors down from the place where these pigs had, probably concocted some other bullshit lie why they should have been there in the first place anyway.
Exactly. To go bust some local weed dealer, like really serving the community there, But so there was an 8-hour standoff where Maurice Hill was holed up in his house and refused to leave. Hundreds of police just locked down North Philadelphia. And again, like in 85, when they bombed West Philly and burned down an entire block, in 78, after they destroyed the MOVE house, they bulldozed it. What followed were these police riots where they just went around the neighborhood terrorizing everybody. It was just like this terror campaign in retribution for the fact that, a cop got hurt. And so that was the fear that there's going to be retribution. I went to the grocery store while it was still unfolding, because again, this took 8 hours.
Right.
And it was really sad but realistic to hear people talking about it, just be like, he's dead. Like, there's no way he's walking out of that house.
Right.
I'll tell you what he did. He holed up in there. He said, I want my lawyer. And after 8 hours, every news camera in the goddamn state was there. His lawyer was there. He was negotiating, and he walked out. That's pretty smart. I mean, if there weren't cameras, if there weren't lawyers, like, they would have just killed him.
That's right.
Clearly. So I got to give it up to him. But black people in this country have the right to defend themselves. Period. Especially in a state, in Pennsylvania, so we have the Governor Wolf. He's like a progressive Democrat who loves to lock down prisons when there's a strike. He loves to, do all this bullshit.
Motherfucker.
The Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, actually, we have the worst ICE office that arrests more and kidnaps more people than any other ICE headquarters in the country, which is weird. Why Pennsylvania? It's, that's what happens in here.
Because you're so damn close to the border. And
yeah, right.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
They have a foom tube, man. I gotta tell you, this is some serious shit. These terrorists from the Middle East that are coming up through Mexico, they have a foom tube. They have one of these things now that George Soros built. It's like, the old banks when you would put your check in the little canister and it would go foom, and it would go into they have those now, and it goes right to white, rich women's homes in Philadelphia.
That's right. I heard that's what the Venezuelan Hezbollah guys are doing, right?
Totally Venezuelan Hezbollah. Foom tubes, homie.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to derail the conversation, man, but it's just so astounding, man. And so much respect, it sounds, is deserved for Maurice Hill for thinking on his toes. Give me my goddamn lawyer. There's no doubt in my mind at all that they would have murdered him. That they wanted to. The instant that there was cut.
And if you want to talk about the bourgeois media response too, it was this pearl-clutching horror that these people in North Philly, after 6 of our heroes were shot, you have the community in North Philly laughing and mocking the officers, and this carnival festival atmosphere that emerged.
The video I saw, there's all kinds of people that are just standing around. There's all kinds of random people that are, yeah, you dumb pigs, fuck you, pig, and like,
right? This is an occupying army in their community that regularly terrorizes them. And somebody was like, you know what, fuck you. I'm not going to take it today. That's going to be respected. You know, they tried. There was a solidarity march for Maurice Hill like a couple days after he was arrested. And check this out, too. So there was just that report that came out of Rutgers University that found that a leading cause of death for black men in this country is being murdered by the police. 1 in 1,000 black men in the United States can expect to be killed by the police. In Pennsylvania alone, since 2015, when Governor Wolf took office, there were the police have murdered 95 people in the last 4 years in Pennsylvania. There have been 82 or 83 mass shootings. But Maurice Hill holds up in his row home and refuses to get killed by the police. And the next day, Governor Wolf was out there saying, we need gun control.
No
We're going to do this. Yeah.
So he just got completely possessed by the ghost of Ronald Reagan, is what happened.
Exactly. You know?
Oh, man.
Which, by the way, it was, I mean, I'm sure your viewers know better than most folks that's gun control comes from, you know, the self-defense and arming of
But Black Panthers walked up on the Capitol building in Sacramento when Reagan happened to be out there doing a press conference. And they walked right into the fucking chambers of Congress and was like, sup?
Yeah. And today, actually, is
and
the
Reagan
anniversary.
Instantly began. That was the very beginning of the terms. We didn't use language like gun control before that.
No, let alone from a racist Republican establishment.
Who called...
But today's actually the anniversary of Huey Newton's death, which we are told was the result of gang violence, which, again, that's... who knows? But...
a ridiculous bullshit lie. Give me a fucking break.
But so it's kind of poignant that we're talking about, you know, black self-defense on the anniversary of the death of one of the leading organizers of the Panthers. So yeah, Maurice Hill is in custody now. The other thing that's really important is Larry Krasner. It wasn't enough for him to sign this warrant. He showed up on the scene that Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday night, and negotiated personally with Maurice Hill. And then the next day, he goes to the press conference and is bragging. His exact words were, it was a phony baloney deal that I offered him. He offered Maurice Hill a plea bargain.
And then went on air and said, yeah, I was fucking lying to the...
Yeah, see, like, you see cops, I'm with you. I'm on your side. I lied to him.
Scumfuck.
So now you have the top prosecutor in the city is in charge of prosecuting a case where, number one, he's personally a witness to it, and number two, he has already given the defendant false legal advice.
That's right.
It's a preposterous, and we're supposed to think that Maurice Hill is this monster.
So that's what I was going to ask you. What do you know about what Maurice is charged with? Do you know about like any other developments in his case? Anything that you can share with us on that?
The district attorney's office put out a list of charges. Again, that's how we found out what presumably the original warrant was for, which was for possession of marijuana with intent to distribute. But now he's being charged with multiple counts of felony attempted murder because they're claiming that he tried to kill all these police officers. But I'll tell you, the community support, his resources, this lawyer of his apparently, who was savvy enough to help get his client out of that situation.
He's alive right now.
Which is, I mean, it's like I said, just the feeling on the street was, oh, well, they're going to kill that guy. Mm-hmm. It was this gross feeling to know that it was ongoing, and it's like, this is the Philly police we're talking about. But so it already ended better than it could have. And I wouldn't count him out. I think that this, especially with all the prosecutorial misconduct that's already happened, this has the makings of a very interesting case. The history of the Philadelphia Police Department really informs our understanding of this too. Where you look at the MOVE organization, they claim that they killed a cop. and it was a lie.
Right.
Mumia Abu Jamal, they said that he killed a cop. That was a lie.
Right.
Like this history is that is their MO. And I would be very curious to find out what the extent and the nature of these 5 pigs who were apparently shot by a high-powered rifle and spent 20 minutes in the ER and got patched up and left. Okay.
Well, I mean, I just got to say, if it was me and I had went to the wrong house with all my friends and all my riot gear and all my guns, and then stumble across, all of a sudden there's this dude in his kitchen, and I mean, I would obviously have to murder him right in that moment. I mean, that's just terrifying to think that
Sure.
he just came out of his the room next to his kitchen,
Right.
and was like, "Get the fuck out of my house, you piece of shit pig motherfucker." I don't know that he said that, probably didn't, but but I mean, that's terrifying. You have to kill that person in that moment. And how
Right.
dare they?
especially with, like, I don't know who it was or what type of cop went to carry out this warrant, but I saw plenty of pictures of cops in civilian plainclothes clothing with assault weapons, and I'm sure that nobody in this climate, in this time, sees a white man with an assault rifle and thinks, yeah, it's probably just the police. It's probably fine. No reason to be alarmed by that. Let alone in your own home, to just suddenly see some white guy with an assault gun come.
So these pigs murdered somebody else.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that, but first, definitely need a more guillotine truck.
Let's do it.
Cool. I'll be right back.
Hello from the children of planet Earth.
Hey, this is Punks for Progress. I'm Reverend Aaron. I'm here with Ted Kelly from Philly. This is the Philly Report with Ted Kelly. We're going to talk about, man, the pigs in Philly are just, I mean, look, man, it's almost a cliche at this point, but the fucking pigs are out of control there, man. It just, every report, it's just, and I know we're not getting to everything. We're never even getting close to the amount of people that we're killing, but it's like, some things are so heinous, I guess, sometimes that you have to draw, you can't, we're forced as a society to move on from brutal murder and oppression from the state on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And you have to stop at times and just go, God damn it, no. This person, this name, Bryant Henry.
Yes.
So, please, comrade, get us up to speed on Bryant BJ.
So, I mean, yeah. Bryant Henry, he went by BJ. He was 25 years old. This was a couple weeks ago. Last month, he was stopped by police at the Broad and Olney subway stop, which is, it's, we were discussing in the last segment. It's in North Philly. It's, I think, 4 or 5 subway stops away from where that standoff in Maurice Hill took place, actually. And police said they stopped him for some kind of suspicion. It was a stop and frisk, which is still the policy in Philadelphia.
It's still the legal, that's on the books, stop and frisk, okay.
Yeah. Claimed that he had some kind of drugs on him, which who fucking knows if that's true. I have my suspicions always.
And who gives a shit if he did?
Exactly. Police say that he ran, which,
That's a killable offense in my book.
Exactly.
I'm always threatened by people who run away from me, man. It's terrifying.
Oh my God, yeah, right, exactly. It's like, they said he ran, and in the struggle, he fell down onto the tracks and hit the third rail and died. Witnesses, there were multiple witnesses. This was a crowded subway platform, so there were a lot of witnesses. And everyone on the subway platform says, no, they shot him with a taser, which caused him to fall onto the tracks. And then he was electrocuted and died.
That's fucking believable.
I mean, the people interviewed immediately, like, by the paper, but, like, the witnesses, they claim that the police just came out of nowhere and grabbed him and that he was tased. They claim that he was already handcuffed. One bystander who filmed the whole thing on her phone claims that police grabbed her phone and trashed it, destroyed her phone. Because there was immediately this group of people confronting the cops. He just murdered this man,
Right.
That was the story. Then the police came out a couple days later and said there was no taser, he struggled, he fell just on his own. We have video surveillance that will corroborate the police narrative. And when they asked if they would release it, of course they said no. So we're just supposed to take the police's word on this, despite multiple witnesses saying the police shot him with a taser, which caused him to fall onto the tracks and die.
So is the just case closed?
Is
there a follow-up investigation? Is there...
Yeah. The family is pushing for an investigation, but there's been no reprimands. The cops obviously aren't in trouble for this. And so there's... Basically, it's a push to... It was this thing where simultaneously the police said, we're doing an internal review, and also our internal review says that they did nothing wrong. They claim that we would have evidence if there was a taser that was, fired. But witnesses say that's what they saw. It's just this complete lockdown. It's similar. There was a case a couple of years ago, Khalil Lawal, who was actually from Virginia, who was visiting family in Philadelphia, who was murdered by an off-duty police officer in South Philly. He was shot 15 times point blank because he was driving through a neighborhood because he was lost, and this off-duty cop, murdered him. The family of Mr. Lawal said that they saw video, and it proves that this off-duty cop accosted him and murdered him. And they want that video released so that there can be led to an investigation so that cops can be held responsible. And Larry Krasner is withholding that evidence, as we expect that Larry Krasner will withhold evidence of the B.J. Henry's murder as well. There's actually this disgusting moment where Larry Krasner spoke at the Netroots Nation conference, which was in Philadelphia in July. And there are a bunch of Black Lives Matter activists and family members of Khalil Lawal. This was before Bryant was killed. And they were just demanding, they went into the Q&A thing and demanded that Krasner release the tape. And his behavior was so gross. Like Pam Africa, one of the greatest organizers alive today, the director, the Minister of Confrontation for the MOVE organization, Larry Krasner compared her to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He's like, there's so much misinformation, so many lies coming out of your mouth. It reminds me of what we see from the White House.
And that's all in the last Philly report. Please check it out. Yeah. It is she is just so passionately on point as fuck with the way she brought it to him and the way she just put up with no sorts of bullshit. When you tried to talk that shit, she was just like...
And she even says in that video, listen, you've done some good things. I get it. But, when it comes to taking it to the police, when they frame these young black men, when they kill these young black men, you are 100% an obstacle for justice. And, I mentioned the Khalil Lawal case because it's so similar to what's now happening with Bryant Henry. Everyone who was a witness to it or who saw the tape said, this was a lynching. This was horrible. And the only people who have that evidence are the ones saying, well, it's being investigated. We can't release that to the public. Which, that's a cover-up. That's what happened in what Rahm Emanuel did in Chicago.
That fucking scumbag. Jesus Christ.
It's
everywhere. I mean, it is systemic. It's, I have no problem saying it again, and I will say it over and over again, but the police department began as slave patrols. That's what they were. They were slave patrols. And when the 13th and the 14th Amendment came into play, they were freed from the plantations. So then it had to be, the 13th Amendment, amend the 13th Amendment, because it has the exception clause in there that says, that they're freed from slavery, except if they've been duly convicted for a crime, which involves, looking at a white woman, or loitering, or spitting, or not having any money. And
driving while black, existing while black, yeah.
You're arrested, sent to prison, but actually your prison is you're farmed out to the plantation you were just freed from. And so the slave patrols, which is also relevant to the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment wording is, for the purposes of a well-regulated militia, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So militia was understood by people contemporary to when this was written that the militia was the slave patrol.
Right.
It was the people who, hey man, we don't have an actual, force or an actual, police force or whatever. So everyone needs to have a gun. So if one of these people that we've decided it's okay to own doesn't want to be owned anymore, we can call y'all up and get together and we'll go round him up, beat the shit out of him, and replace him half dead to his slavery. And so when the 13th Amendment comes into place, that's when they got badges. And it just became official, and then they started getting actual federal funding and became the police forces that we have today. That's what they are. And in some places that history is just clearly evident. Everything that you describe regularly to me about what's going on in Philadelphia it's just they're not even hiding it. It's other communities. Now look, they're not going to treat you that way in your upper middle class community.
Exactly.
They're not. They cruise through to have a presence to look like they're doing something so that you can wave at them and they can wave back, and they might even help your grandma across the street with her groceries and shit. But meanwhile, his homies are over murdering the black people.
Precisely.
Straight up, because that's what they're supposed to do. That's what they're there to do.
That's
what they've always been there to do.
Yes.
Disgusting. It's fucking disgusting, and it's just like it's like exasperating. It has to be, especially for the people of Philly, to see these. Not just that they're murdering so many innocent young men, but that like it's like the same MO and the same thinly veiled bullshit lies. And like, wait a minute, that raises a big huge red flag to everybody in Philadelphia. But can you do something? No, we can't. Like, because whatever, and sucks. Our heart goes out to the family of Bryant,
Right.
and thoughts and to the family.
They love saying
the
it's
prayers
a
and the.
They did that with Floyd Lawal. They did that with Ricardo Giddings. After they kill someone, they come back and say, "What an unavoidable tragedy that took place." And this is, it's very important to raise these voices so that they're not statistics. But there's also the day-to-day stop and frisk, the humiliations, the looking out in your neighborhood and feeling like you're under military occupation at all time. There's that constant depredation and constant ever-present oppression. It's
I'm part
it's really-
Latinx, comrade. Okay, so I'm not fully Caucasian or whatever.
right.
But I have most of the white privilege that comes with
Right.
my physical features.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having to teach my children. How do you not teach your children that they will murder you? I've never had to. I never had to teach my children that lesson growing up. I just can't fathom. How do you sit down with a little child
Yeah.
and make them understand that CSI will murder you?
Yes.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
These people on
The heroes that we're
TV.
supposed to love, like, they're, like how does that, like, how included do you feel in culture at that point? That the people who were out here lionizing on TV and movies and fucking everywhere, including the goddamn news,
Right.
yeah, those are the ones who we need to teach you how to deal with them like they're wild animals. And if you do all the right steps, you might be able to get out of it safely.
That's right. And because, you hear countless stories, time after time, and I'll let you go, I promise, of just someone picks up the phone who's in danger or is going through a mental health crisis and hits 911 for help, and they show up and just instantly murder them.
Yes.
And
That happened to a young Ethiopian man in West Philly, I think last summer, where there was an altercation, there was like a stabbing or something. He called the police. The police came up and shot him. He survived, but he was in critical condition and lost his job and all this stuff. So we're still trying to get your support him. But yeah, it makes me think too what you just said about having to have that conversation with your kid. It really shows how similar the struggle of black liberation in this country is with the current migrant crisis.
Word.
You hear these massive raids on factories and kids coming home and finding out they got my parents and now I don't know what to do. And it's like kids being afraid of whether their parents will come home, or parents, their kid goes out at night or they're on the way home from school and you're just hoping that they don't run into one of the armed deputies of the state, whether it's ICE or whether it's a cop. This is the same struggle. And there's a fear that you'll be taken to this kind of concentration camp, which is for people who crossed an alleged border, or this concentration camp, which is just for poor people and black people in this country. I think if we can unite those struggles, that's...
Well, I was just going to say, it sounds like the early passages in Anne Frank's diary.
It really does. Especially with the toxic conditions in prisons. And now the news that they're not even going to be giving flu vaccines or shots to the kids. Anne Frank died of typhus.
Typhus.
Not
She was not gassed, is because of the horrible, disgusting, hygienic conditions that they were herded like cattle into. So disgusting.
And this summer there were 60,000 children who were kidnapped by ICE and put in detention camps.
And not only are they going to deny the flu shots, they've now proposing indefinite detention of families. They're supposedly not going to separate the families anymore, which I don't buy for a second.
No.
But they're just saying, oh, we're going to keep them together forever.
Forever.
In our private prison camp where they're, herded into a cage, 60 to 80,
Yes.
on a cement with a cement floor and a tinfoil blanket, and they're all gonna fucking. Jesus Christ, man! This is, it is a massive escalation. This is exactly like the concentration camps. It is precisely like it. There is literally no difference. This is the progression.
Yeah, and this is, the Third Reich concentration camps and death camps were modeled after the Indian removal policy camps of the United States. And I was down in Mexico in November, and it's seeing some of the refugee camps and being down there, you realize especially one of the problems that a lot of the refugee camps and the aid providers have is that not everyone speaks Spanish. They might speak their own indigenous languages. And it really wasn't until that, I knew it intellectually, but it wasn't until being there that I realized that this is just a continuation of this centuries-long war against the indigenous people of this continent. And that's, it's the same policy of Indian removal. It's just entered its new high-tech phase. In the same way, like you were just saying, that the police are in the direct tradition of the slave catchers. It's just now they have 21st century technology and weapons of war that they can roll down Broad Street whenever they want.
And from the early passages of Anne Frank's diary to Pastor Niemöller, it's like, who are they coming for next? First they came for the trade unionists. First they, first they came for the immigrants. First they came for the refugees of the brutality and oppression of Western imperialism. They'll come for the MAGA chud. They will come for the MAGA chud eventually.
Oh, sure. They're just idiot attack dogs that once they've outlived their usefulness, then they're done.
So we really went off the rails, which I didn't mind.
Sure, yeah.
I did not mind doing it all because I agree with you that it is relevant. You can't sort of compartmentalize these things.
Yes.
Because they are directly connected. It is all one broad campaign of the oppression of the masses from the few. And but is there an ongoing? What do you know about what's going on to keep Bryant's name relevant and to put pressure on Krasner to actually, release video, whatever it is, or I'll let you go.
Yes, we have to keep this struggle going and keep this in the news. We were talking about the Inquirer, where the first article that came out was just one after another witness testimony of B.J. Henry's murder, saying, I saw what they did, their story's not true, they tased him, they cuffed him, and then the follow-up article was, police say that's not true, and the story dropped off the mainstream headlines. But I would recommend that folks follow the Philly Real Justice. It's REAL Justice. It's one of the best, really radical, unapologetic Black liberation, Black activist groups in Philadelphia. Philly for Real Justice.
Where can they find that?
You can find that on Facebook and Instagram, Philly Real Justice. And they're the ones who have been taking it to Krasner alongside MOVE and Black Lives Matter to really keep these names.
And it's is it Philly Black Lives Matter or is it Black Lives Matter Philly? That's who has
Black Lives Matter. Yeah, Black Lives Matter Philadelphia is another is like sort of the chapter of BLM.
That's
here in
who
the
I
city.
saw the video of Pan Africa giving
Yes,
it to him.
yes, exactly.
Was through them. So please check them out on Facebook as well.
Absolutely. And we have to, so we'll join these groups. We work very closely with Real Justice. One of my, a couple of my dear Workers' World comrades are also members of Real Justice. It's a group that, they were really leading the charge in Philadelphia, going back to, Ferguson solidarity demonstrations. That was, going on 4 or 5 years ago.
So they have a kind of basic infrastructure in place to actually, get some shit done and make some shit happen. That's fantastic.
Great group, yeah.
So let's subject these fucking people to a little more guillotine truck, and then come back and talk about this piece of shit that apparently resigned in shame and disgrace. Shall we do that?
Let's.
We'll be right back.
Death is your only escape.
Hey, we are back. I am Reverend Aaron. I'm here with Ted Kelly from Philadelphia. This is the Philly Report. And so aside from being a bunch of unhinged racist murderers, some of the cops, one in particular, tends to get up to some other types of shenanigans, apparently.
That's right. Yeah, I know that it will come as a shock to your viewers to find out that cops are also disgusting sexists and misogynists and domestic abusers and sexual harassers. I know that's shocking. That Philly's finest would engage in this stuff. But I think it was a surprise to everyone, because this is coming right after the Maurice Hill standoff. It comes just a couple weeks after the Philly Police Department said that they're going to fire 13 officers because it was revealed that hundreds of them were posting like disgustingly racist, sexist, Islamophobic stuff on social media. There were like 72 of them under investigation. Now they claim that they're going to fire 13 of them. And in the midst of all this, just this week, Philadelphia Police Commissioner Richard Ross announced his resignation. Nobody saw this coming.
What?
And so Richard Ross, he's different than some of like the police chiefs that we've had before, because he is Philly born and raised. He's always been a Philly cop. Like a lot of these high-ranking guys, like Wright Kelly, they float around and like go to different big cities. Ross is, a Philly pig. He's a black man, and he is, it's weird because I used to see him, I've seen him in person a lot. Like, he likes to show up for stuff and like watch. Yeah, he's one of those perverts. He likes to watch his police beat people up and stuff.
Does he wear different like medals and shit when he goes out?
He loves doing the full bird like tin pot dictatorship. He loves that. And then just for a peaceful protest, just come out with a flak vest. It's like, what are you doing here? He was there when not this most recent July, but last year when we had an occupation at the Philadelphia ICE headquarters, and it was just violently, brutally, destroyed, the encampment by the police. He was there for that, just sitting there watching and I'm sure he loved it because he got to coordinate with federal pigs and DHS and everything. So, and when he resigned, everyone Mayor Kenny was just the most distinguished career, a flawless record. And it's funny to say all that while he's resigning in disgrace for covering up a massive sexual harassment scandal. Tell
us what is that all about? Yeah.
So as soon as he resigned, we started to get news of this massive lawsuit that it was actually women who work for the Philadelphia police force brought complaints of both sexual and racial discrimination to their superiors, and Ross was not doing anything to address these concerns. Mayor Kenny actually even tasked him he said, deal with this, make sure that this gets investigated. He still did not. And it turns out that Ross, one of the reasons that he ignored these claims was retribution for an affair he was having with a subordinate. And, so he was having an affair, I think as early as 2010 or something like that. He was having an affair with a subordinate female officer, and she brought sexual discrimination complaints, and sort of as a way of being fuck you, he didn't do anything about it.
So now he's gonna go fuck over all these other women because he's mad at this woman that... What a twisted scum shit piece of fuck.
I mean, it's so perverse. It's so perverse. And Philadelphia...
It's like incel shit, bro.
Oh my god, I know, yeah. And especially because he has this reputation of being such an upstanding, serious man who, when he talks about the tragedy of his own cops killing people, he'll get... Oh, he was all teary-eyed when he talked about the Maurice Hill standoff, and his brave man who got shot. Like, he's so full of shit. Like, these pious cops are always very full of shit.
Yeah.
And so he's already, we now have an acting police commissioner who is and tell me if this is not the most cynical thing you've ever heard, one of his deputies, Christine Coulter. So now, in the wake of this massive sexual harassment, sexual discrimination scandal, Philadelphia can be proud that we have our first woman top cop. And so, as they announced that Christine Coulter was going to take over the police department, they said, like, such a distinguished, flawless record. And again, no sooner did they say that than we looked into her record, and it's like, oh, okay, so she made headlines in the 90s for when she was a sergeant for covering up the murder of a truck driver when police beat him to death, and was actually suspended for her complicity in and like her active cover-up of this crime. The cops, the city paid out $250,000 to the family of this man who was killed in 1994. She's now the one who's running the Philadelphia Police Department.
Well, but the bottom line is, because she's a female, all her fellow female officers have now been unsexually harassed or abused or raped or whatever the hell it is.
She even said, it's never happened to me. Like, I will take very seriously these claims, but I never faced any discrimination.
Good news for Philly. Instantly, that all just disappeared. It literally never happened now.
Yeah.
That's all it takes, man. That's the other thing too, is like, on a lot of these anti-abortion laws that are being passed, it's like they're like chomping to get a woman to present it or to do the speech or to back the bill, to like all of a sudden it's not a complete massive oppressive authoritarian violation of individual autonomy.
Absolutely.
No, but this other vagina said. So.
Yeah.
What?
And she was Ross's deputy, but it's just so cynical. Like, in the same way that they will prop up, like, at a time where Black Lives Matter is something that is in the consciousness of everyone in the city, they can say, well, we have black police officers.
Right.
Well, how could this be a racist police force? What are you talking about?
And you know what that means is that they hate us and think that we're incredibly fucking stupid. That's the level of disrespect and disdain that they have for the people that they're supposedly protecting, which
Indeed.
They're slave patrols. But that oh yeah, well, here's a woman now. Like seriously, like that should just be a word. Unsexually harassed.
Yeah. Oh, it all goes away.
It's gone. It never happened now. I mean, it's just so fucking... I mean, okay, what? So, what I would be fascinated to see is if she even does one token, like fire one guy. Like, this is the one that was way over the top, so we're going to have, so that she could be, But I'll tell you what, I bet if she did that, if she fires one fucking male pig, they will eat her alive in that fucking department.
Yes.
Destroy her.
Especially with the power that the Fraternal Order of Police wields in this. And that's true of, like, a lot of the cities where they have these cop unions. Philadelphia is one of them. New York is one of them. If you saw the video of the head of the New York Fraternal Order of Police after they finally fired that murderer Pantaleo, just vein-popping, red-faced rage. And people, seriously, your viewers have to Google John McNesby, head of the Fraternal Order of Police of Philadelphia, and tell me that he does not look like a cartoon character of a pig.
Literal steam and shit.
Necklace, like,
oh my God.
Pink. Yeah. So yeah, but I think you're right. Like, it's one of the weird contradictions now that she will be, put. I mean, this is still a sexist society, and she will have that extra scrutiny put against her, especially by these fucking disgusting her fellow pigs.
But as you said, she proved her bona fides by covering up this other murder in the past, right? I mean,
yeah, a 30-year-old truck driver named Moises de Jesus. Police beat the shit out of him, and she helped cover that murder up. again, it led to her suspension. Like
They beat this man to death, like just fucking caveman.
Apparently he was. I mean, it's hard. It was in 1994, so I confess to not knowing all the details, but I think it was a case of like a mental distress. Somebody called 911 to help this guy who was having an episode, and they killed him. Yeah.
They knocked the mental distress right out of his head, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And
with
she
his
was
brains. Fucking
right. So she was suspended for that, for this horrible thing and for covering it up, and then later through arbitration, like got that disciplinary stuff overturned, which enables the mayor to say she has a flawless record.
Oh, it was.
No.
There it is. There's American policing in a nutshell, right there.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's but there is a little bit of Schadenfreude we can at least get. The fact that Richard Ross, his career is over from disgraceful behavior and his own personal, horrible, yeah.
Well, they're all a bunch of misogynist fucking pigs. They have to be.
Yes.
Because it's systemic, and that's what they're there to protect. And I just,
just think about,
look, they're all these fucking pigs are a member of the working class, okay? And these are women members, female members of the working class, okay? There's, a hierarchy in our class war here, right? And it astounds me, women that associate themselves with the Proud Boys girls. It's just so fucking sad because, they're going to abuse you.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're, going to mean to. They're going to be really, really nice to you. They are genuinely very stoked that you're there. They do not perceive themselves as being this shit, but they're going to abuse you. You're validating their notions that they're oppressed as men and it's women that are doing it. At some point, it's going to manifest in some really fucking ugly, brutal, violent behavior.
Yes. Especially when you look at the terrorists, the white supremacist terrorists who are committing these pogroms and these mass murders. So many cases, it starts with domestic violence. It starts with them killing a sister or a significant other or their mother. It's the sexist and racist violence is completely intertwined in the same structure.
We're force-fed this every single day in and day out from every fucking, and it's an imbalanced, illogical bombardment. The information we're being fed that men are better women, it's just not true. I mean, it's just physiologically wrong. It's genetically just wrong. We are all individual, and we are all fucking unique snowflakes and shit, homie.
Which is that's another reason that they hate trans people so much.
That's right, because they are
revealing the remarkably stupid, illusory nature of gender. They have to have gender in the same way that they have to have race. Because if we start dismantling these structures, then what does it mean to be a white man? Suddenly, what do you have?
Right. Because everything that they have is something that was they had absolutely no hand in creating. It's not. You don't create being born in America. You don't create having a penis. You don't create whatever, having certain pigment in your skin. These are conditions you're born into, and yet they still think, we fucking fought the Civil War. We fought against the crown, and no, you really didn't. And you're actually now kind of fighting on the side that was fought against last time, and you're an idiot. And but yeah, but
it's the same thing we were talking about with they love claiming Charlemagne and the Spartans and Rome and all this shit. It's it has nothing to do with you. You were just born.
Nothing to do with you. And so this bombardment of these images, it creates an inner turmoil. And intrinsic in it is cognitive dissonance. You have to have cognitive dissonance because you're going to be regularly confronted with situations in life that contradict this notion that somehow being a white male makes you superior to other things. And so you perpetually put in a position where you're going to have to like defend that, and you're going to lose all the time. You're not going to win that in the general, marketplace of discussion. You're really not, because 70% of the population hates this president.
Exactly.
Okay,
especially as class consciousness develops, and people realize more and more that this is a white supremacist society, a patriarchal society, and that capitalism is the root cause, that these are pillars holding it up. They feel oppressed because everyone's like, no, that you're wrong. You're an asshole. Like, that's wrong. So that feels like oppression to them.
Well, it's like I use the analogy of like, okay, so there's the kind of right-winger guy at the party. It's literally any party. And he pops off with some bullshit that he said to the guy at work on the job site, and it was really funny, and it's racist and sexist and gross as fuck. And he's like, ah, and he pops off with it, and the entire room goes, ah! Excuse me? And then the idiot tried to defend it and say, well, I mean, it's just a joke, it's not racist. And then someone said something to him to correct him and make him understand why the fuck that was really inappropriate and out of line, and that you should be ashamed of yourself. Now, see, that person listens to a Milo Yiannopoulos or a Ben Shapiro and goes, yeah, I was censored. My free speech was under attack, man. And it's like, no, it wasn't. And then now they have a president that comes along and goes, yeah, that's what that was when you made an ass of your racist, fucking sexist self at the party. What that was an attack on your free speech. And they're all mind-controlled lib turds that, ultimately want to communist your face into a gulag and whatever. And no, you were just a racist, sexist asshole.
God, Aaron, I got like a chill when you were saying that, because that's what we hear from so many family members of these murderers, these mass shooters later, where it's like, we knew he was getting way off the deep end. It was, like, we didn't want to engage with him anymore, and then we find out, Or they're completely taken aback because all of this has been going on just online for them, and it hasn't been, Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It's being called out for your completely bullshit analysis of the material conditions, for being an asshole, that feels like oppression to them.
Right. And again, it may sound like we kind of went off the rails, but we didn't. Like, the Proud Boys, I mean, they're sporting blue line flags.
Yes.
They think that they're aligned with the police, and where their whole thing is Merca and flag and troops and cops, and we're fucking, that's what we're all about. And Antifa are terrorists for hating these people. So, I mean, really, you're just
like
fascist
when it
bootleg.
comes to sexual harassment and sexual discrimination, they speak out of both sides of their mouth. They simultaneously say, the Me Too movement is bullshit, these women are lying, and nothing that was done to them is bad. It's this simultaneous horseshit, It's like they deny that it happened, and they also don't think that kind of horrible conduct is bad, So, surprise, surprise.
Cops and clans.
Cops are exactly the same.
Yeah. So, talk to me about recent developments with the Worker Solidarity Network.
Hell yeah. I'm glad that we can end on a good note too, because this is some really exciting stuff. It's this new grouping that's forming in, not just in Philadelphia, it's like there's like an international worker solidarity network. People have been doing really good actions, particularly like they're coordinating with FIRE, Fight for Immigrants and Refugees Everywhere, that we talked about before. FIRE is doing some great work in Texas now. There's chapters in Texas popping up. And the big push, there's actually going to be a demonstration tomorrow in New York with FIRE and Work Solidarity Network, targeting Greyhound, and they're allowing ICE to come onto their buses and stuff. Greyhound is saying, hey, this is what we're obligated to do by law. That's their out. And so there's this work being done. And now in Philadelphia, the Worker Solidarity Network is forming. We're having our third meeting, and it's really cool. It's folks who have been wanting to get involved but aren't necessarily members of an organization or affiliated with any certain. They're progressive. They want to get involved and learn more, and this is like a good broader movement for folks to plug into, even if they're not necessarily ready to mask up at a demonstration. They're not ready to join like a communist Marxist-Leninist group, so it's, but there are a lot of people out there who are like, enough's enough. Like, I need to get.
Right.
So this is a group for them. And what we're trying to do, the slogan that we're sort of rolling with is no walls in the work struggle. We don't acknowledge the phony border between the U.S. and Mexico. We don't acknowledge the walls that separate us between the incarcerated and non-incarcerated people. We're about tearing down these walls, and particularly the real crisis of the migrant struggle right now. And I think some of the most effective work that we've seen around the country that we're trying to apply in Philadelphia is targeting the corporations that are profiting from these concentration camps. And one of the big ones, is Aramark. Aramark is like that food distribution company.
Right.
They have a headquarters in Philadelphia. They have a big stupid skyscraper that has their logo on it, like right on the Schuylkill River. And they not only supply the maggot-ridden, inedible food to prisons, they also have contracts with Homeland Security and with ICE. So we're doing research and trying to build for action, and trying to get Aramark workers on board with this, because the people who are just working jobs there, like, they don't want to be complicit in these horrible crimes.
Right.
Like, they are working class like us. So.
And guaranteed most of those people have absolutely no idea that Aramark is involved and all this stuff. These are just other workers who just want to feed their kids and have a roof over their head and shit. And
exactly.
Maybe if someone were made aware.
Yeah, and especially, Philadelphia it's an interesting city because it has all these financial institutions have headquarters here, but it's not like Wall Street. We have a major, people come through from DC to New York to further up, but it's not like that. It's still like a very impoverished city. It's a black city. And there's a great deal of class consciousness. Again, nobody's shedding any tears for Richard Ross, who is a black police commissioner, in the same way that everyone now knows that our progressive DA, Larry Krasner, is full of shit. Like, the political awareness and political consciousness of Philadelphia is very high. So when you look around, just take a tour of Center City, Philly, and you see Wells Fargo, Dow Chemical, Aramark, all these corporations, it's like there are so many places that we can target people who are leeching off of this city with their corporate headquarters, and that's one of the things that the Worker Solidarity Network wants to raise awareness of and start taking it to them.
So it's workersolidarityNetwork.org?
Yes.
And it's not, and if I'm correct, it's not workers and then a second S, solidarity. Actually, it's workersolidarityNetwork.org. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's how it's spelled.
Remember
correct.
It
exactly.
right. Okay.
And we have a Facebook page specifically for the Philly group now, and we're going to have our next meeting on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. So it'll be great if anybody wants to come out. We're trying to build more solidarity with the migrant movement. We want to have a Labor Day march coming up, and it's an open group. We want as many people to come by and get involved as possible.
And for those who aren't in the Philly area, Ted will come back and do another report and give us further developments on what's going on with the Worker Solidarity Network. And also, you mentioned the action against Greyhound, to confront Greyhound in New York.
Yes, folks in New York can plug in there.
Our comrade Pinko the Bear is going to be there, facilitating noise at the event, and he's going to be very busy, but he's going to try and get us a little bit of footage and report back from that. And so stay tuned for further developments on actions against ICE and Greyhound, further developments with the Worker Solidarity Network, this growing network that I don't know where you're from. I imagine there's probably a need of a Worker Solidarity Network branch or chapter. I don't know what terminology you prefer. But in your area, that could be something that, who knows? If you're looking to get really more involved in what's going on with concentration camps and the scapegoating of innocent people, this is all like, don't look at the capitalism behind the curtain. That's what putting these people in prisons is.
So true. It's so true.
And destroying these children's lives forever. You don't recover from being taken away from your children and stuck in a cage when you're fucking 7 years old. You don't. That's so fucking.
Again, like, going back to what we were talking about earlier and how this is like a continuation on the war against indigenous people, the schools for Native Americans, where people snatched away from their families and educated away from them, this horrible adoption program. I mean, how similar is that to what we've seen for the last several centuries on this continent? Yeah.
Streamlined, and it's got fucking funding now, you know?
Right. Yeah. And it is about profit. It is at a time where, like we were saying earlier, we've reached this crisis of overproduction. We have surplus labor. We have not, like, the actual consumers are not buying commodities. So what's a way we can make money off this labor population? It's extremely profitable to hold them in cells and to corral them and keep them in cages. To have this this surplus labor population on retainer, so that we can farm them out to corporations.
We take taxpayer dollars and give it to these private corporations, and the amount of money that we give to per individual is more than you make in a year. Okay? To house them in this fucking cage with a whole bunch of other people in the cage with them. It's not cells with a set of bunk beds and a sink and a fucking metal toilet. It's a whole shit ton of people in a cage. You've seen the fucking pictures, you know it. But the amount of money that these private companies get paid is in the neighborhood of like $75,000 on average, if not more, some cases less. Okay? And I have never made even half that in a single year.
Yeah.
How does it cost? And they can't even give them flu shots or fucking toothpaste.
No.
So what the fuck is happening? Why does it cost $75,000 per? I mean, just one cage, that's 60 people. Do the math.
Right.
And you have to buy so many tinfoil blankets and you're good to go, man. You know?
Yeah. And the Pentagon just got its biggest budget in history. The Department of Homeland Security and ICE have gotten huge budget increases specifically to farm out these private contracts where you have a government contract, you can charge whatever the fuck you want, you know? They're making money off of the wholesale dismemberment of these cultures.
Workers' Solidarity Network and FIRE. Freedom for migrants and refugees everywhere. Please look into that as well. Ted Kelly, fantastic fucking report as always, homie.
It is always such a pleasure talking to you, Reverend Aaron. It is like it's like a informed political discussion that also makes me feel, oh my God, I'm not crazy. There are people out there who fight this fight. It's very refreshing.
And and it can feel so overwhelming, this constant barrage of stuff, and then especially when you dive headfirst in to organizing against it. It's a very, 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 it takes an immense emotional toll. I don't give a shit who you are. And then you're perpetually gaslit by your detractors and the powers that be, the literal powers that be, that lie on you and call you the real terrorist and murderer and all.
Let alone all the material pressures from being the fact that we are the working class. And that means that we don't have all these luxurious resources. We have to get by with what we can.
And that's why organizing with people you trust, that you can talk to openly and honestly, is crucially important, because the validation that you get from it's not one big giant agree fest like you see in your right-wing fucking Reddit threads and 4chan and shit, that we call each other on some shit, a lot of back and forth, but we do that off camera. And believe me, we do. And we question each other and we hold each other to account as often as we can, right? But it's on so many levels. That is our only form of protection. It is our only form of solace, and it is the way we are going to fucking win.
It's true.
Shit, right?
We put a lot of ourselves into this, both financially and materially, our time, our lives. But what we get out from it is the people that we meet in the struggle. And you know what? I think that's worth it. I think it's worth it.
Hey, check out some fucking music and whatever. Yeah. And thanks for hanging. And sub things, like things, share stuff. Share this on all the stuff that you share things on. Cool. Thanks so much for hanging, Jack. As always.
My pleasure.
Cool.
Talk to you soon, my brother.
Later, guys.
You see that? You see that? Did you see that?
What? Oh yeah. That's how Rogers County does it.
little bit of Arabic when I was in school, and I learned, so like, Baal Azub in Arabic means Lord of the Flies, and that's Beelzebub, the Lord of the Flies. I was like, holy shit!
Interesting, because El is Lord.
Yes, right, exactly.
I know that from being fascinated with Jewish history and the Gnostics. So you learn about like Elohim and Gabriel, Mikael. And,
yes.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone's favorite from Krypton, Kal-El.
I am clipping that whole last fucking statement. That was too fucking good, man.